Welcome back. Here we are again, Kirk. Nice to see you.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
All right. So, what we're going to do is we are going to go through every aspect of the practice and we're going to take it section by section. We also would love if you put comments in here and ask us questions. We'll add to this content, but we're going to start with my favorite subject. And the whole reason I even started speaking 20 plus years ago and started Front Office Rocks is about phones. Because when I got started, there was one company who taught how to handle phones and they taught scripts, and I was against scripts. So, Kirk, tell us a little bit. Let's just high level, first of all. Let's talk about your practice.
Yeah,
Let's talk about your phones. Give us an idea of what you're used to in your practice, and then we'll kind of dive into things that you teach and thoughts you have around it.
sure. So the first thing I will have to say in our practice is you will, and I'm sure if we called them right now, they would probably it would probably not be this way for some reason. The
Right.
one time we call, but this is the standard of our office is when you call, we get their name first and we use it often, right? Same with when they walk through the practice doors. It's we guess who's coming through that front door and we say their name because that is the most important word in the English language to that person. So we use it, we get their name, we use it often, but we also try to use complimentary verbiage, if that makes sense, versus just kind of a cold verbiage that is just like, hey, let me get your details, let me get you in, like whatever, like what's the problem? Like, no, not problem, right? We're reserving appointments, not making appointments, but also the dreaded insurance question. I feel like that's like the go to for everybody first, but that's not our standard. Our standard is to try to get to know somebody, kind of figure out what's going on. And then we ask them, hey, do you have insurance that will be helping you with this, not paying for this? Because we know that it's just a discount plan. Will it be helping you with this, or will you be paying cash, or maybe would be interested in our membership program? So we kind of go through that route, but try to teach everybody as a human being, not what's based off their insurance. And through that discussion and that very first kind of, I would say script, but kind of that flow is really pick up on red flags. So we really filter probably, I want to say 80%, it's probably not that high, but probably 60% of the patients that call our office.
Okay. What do
So
you
for
mean by that?
instance, this is just an example, but when they call, we're not a Medicaid office. So a lot of people call our office because there's only a handful of doctors in the area because we're in a rural area. So everyone calls like, hey, you're in network with Medicaid. So instead of just writing them off, just saying, hey, no, sorry, call somebody else, like a lot of people do, we give them solutions of we've called around, we know who is in network currently, we know who isn't, and we know in the county, like, hey, this is where you should go and call. But the script is, hey, unfortunately, we're not in network with that insurance. Doesn't mean we can't see you. We would love to see you and your family, but you'd end up paying cash because I know they don't pay any out of network benefits. But I will provide a solution. If you call these two offices, is it for kids or adults? Kids? Okay, cool. This one office. Call this one office. They'll be able to get you in. They're in network. We know this, and here's their number. But if anything changes, we would love to see you. So having that open ended, hey, we're going to give you value. And if anything changes, we would love to have you. Even if they're in network with Medicaid and that's their insurance, they have family members that probably aren't.
Mhm.
And those people refer people to us because now we're just providing value and solutions versus just writing them off based off their insurance.
And I love that. And it's funny because I've been teaching this for so long, like I'm seeing what trickles down through the industry. So I love everything you're saying. I would even add to that, just to throw this out there, and I don't know if your team does this, but I agree with you, especially with Medicaid. I think a lot of offices are like, nope, we don't take it, right? But I have this idea in my head where, they're going to meet somebody, a family member, or they're going to be at the mailbox, is what I always say. And their neighbor's going to go,
Yeah.
hey, do you know a good dentist? And they're going to say, well, no, I don't because I have Medicaid, but I called this office. But the one thing I would add to it is I actually tell our team to talk about our membership program with them also
Yeah.
during that conversation,
Sure.
because then they know, like you said, their family members like, oh, you don't have to have insurance. You can join a membership at that. You should call this office. But 100% what you're saying, I agree with. I mean, in the dream world, I think people are out there talking about us because you're going that extra
Right.
step.
For sure.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why, like, even though we get 50 to 60 new patients a month, 80% of them are referrals. 80%
Uh-huh.
because of how we treat people on the phone. And I would argue, whoever's listening, that your front is the most important position in your practice. because and I'm not, it's not because I'm a little biased. I was in the front for 8 months. Like, I get it. But the reason why is because they're the first and last touch point of every single patient in your practice. So if they're not a rock star coming in on that phone, getting them on the schedule, and if they don't collect money and or handle situations in the front before they walk out the door properly, then they're not coming back. So there's so much that has to go on in the front for that person to be the face of your practice and really brand it around them. It's very important.
Yeah, I tease all the time that we used to be called the front desk, and a lot of times they still, like, go to the front desk, and I'm like, "I'm not a piece of furniture." That's part of the reason,
Yeah,
you know?
that is my downfall too.
Yeah, yeah, go to the front desk, right? We're a piece actually, a doctor, I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, but once I was talking about being the front desk, we're the only piece of furniture, and a dentist said to me in a seminar, he's like, "Well, I have a chair side." And I'm like, "Okay, well, there's 2 pieces of furniture there, it's parts of
Right,
furniture."
right.
Alright,
Yeah,
let's go back though. That all sounds good. Like you said, we could do a mystery call into your office, and I've had mystery calls done to me before where, like, feel like I'm being on camera, like, like,
yeah,
who's doing this, trying to throw me off? So, we understand every scenario is not perfect. We understand that's part of the reason that with Mango Voice that we love is we can actually hear the recordings, we can hear the conversations that happening. But let's just take new employees because not everybody walks in with the attitude you have, with the customer service that you have, experience. So how do you take a new employee and in your practice and give them this knowledge? Like, is this in your job descriptions? How do you train them? How do you make sure these people are doing what you want on the phones?
sure. So we try to hire for personality, not skill,
Mhm.
because there could be the most skillful person in the world, but if they don't have a great personality, it's not going to work because I can train skill. So I have a front desk SOP or standard operating procedure that has, I know you don't like scripts, but that has frameworks.
That's what I would say. You don't want because I don't like scripts.
Right.
The thing is I feel like the attention of the person is on the script, that they wanna
For
follow the
sure.
script, and if the patient
Yeah.
doesn't follow that, then they're off. I do
Yeah.
believe that we need to give them guidelines, frameworks, but it needs to come
Yes.
from their own words,
For
right? They need
sure.
to say it the way they would say it naturally.
For sure. With the exception of certain words. Like,
Mhm.
there are certain words that I do want said for psychology purposes,
Sure, yeah,
right?
okay.
For instance, like the word only. When you're quoting somebody an estimate, you say it's only this amount because that's relative, right? It could be a lot for some people, it could not be a lot for some people. So I want to make sure that, and it also helps with joking when they're like, "Oh yeah, only." I'm like, "Yeah, right?"
Ah,
So there are certain words like reserve your
I was gonna say,
appointment.
give us a few of your words. Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
love to hear
So
you say.
reserve your appointment. Like our so everybody in our confirmations, they get confirmations 2 weeks out, 7 days out, 3 days out, just as like a more direct if they still haven't confirmed to avoid a $50, no show fee or cancellation fee. But then everybody gets one the day before because I found like the people who confirmed 2 weeks before forgot within 2 weeks. So everybody gets one the day before and it says, "Thank you for reserving your appointment tomorrow at so and so. We look forward to seeing you." So having that specific verbiage of reservation, it makes people feel like it's almost like a high-end restaurant, right? That there's more value here than just, "Hey, here's your appointment." Same thing with our reviews. It's like, "Hey, if you think we did a stellar job, we would love to hear from you and see what your thoughts are and leave a 5-star review." It's like little things, not like massive things. Although the only thing I would say that I do like for them to follow directly is that Medicaid solution script, right? Because it's pretty standard and easy to follow. But
I think
everything else
also
is
the way
just
what about the way you
frameworks.
want them to handle, are you in network or not? Or what insurances do you take?
Yeah,
Or
so, like, we're in net
yeah.
we accept all insurances, right? Not, "Oh, we're not in network with that." Like, "You can't come here." I love that one. "You can't come here." Like, what?
Yeah, yeah. And it's
It's like,
amazing to me how many I call into offices and they're like, "No, we don't take your insurance. No." And it's like, "Are you kidding?" I mean, that happens all the time in medical offices. Like, "We have to
yeah,
check your insurance before you can come in." I'm like, "I can't, I think I'm dying and I can't come in because of my
yeah,
insurance?" Yeah,
yeah, and, I mean, we pride ourselves on, as accurate of estimates as possible, but it's an estimate,
yeah, right.
not a fact.
Yeah. Okay, so let's go back. We digress. And
Yes.
before we digress, I'm gonna put in a word I don't like to have people say, which is just. Like, it's just a cleaning. We just need to schedule your appointment. We just need to, because it almost minimizes the importance of it. And we had that for a while when our hygienists were saying, we just need to schedule their cleaning. And then patients would say, okay, well, just call me then. I mean,
Yeah.
so that word I didn't like because it minimizes. So, how so you hire for personality, but then you've got to train them and monitor them to make sure they're doing a good job. So, how do you do that in your practice?
So at the end of every week, I go through the Mango logs and I look to and I filter like negative ones because you can do that. I also look for keywords for also positive calls. So like reservation, reserve, Medicaid, different things. So like, okay, this is a Medicaid call. How did they handle this? And I just kind of audit. I just look at it to see like, okay, how did this actually work? My wife actually this weekend at the retreat was talking to a doctor. She was telling him like, our front knows that we listen to these calls, right?
Mhm.
Or assumes that we listen to these calls because we know that they know that we can. And before we even have the chance, she will come to the back and be like, "Hey, I just want to let you know this was the conversation
Uh-huh.
just in case you wanna listen to it." I'm like, "Great." It's kinda like having security cameras, right?
Uh-huh.
It's like
Yeah.
they know, so there's accountability there, but it's not so harsh that they're having to step on, like, around eggshells, like, it's just constantly like that.
Well, there's 2 things, and you're a fan of metrics, you're a fan of, like, dental intel and right? So, I taught this when I started working with dental intel. There's 2 parts that I was gonna say to that. One is we shouldn't just be looking, and I love that you didn't say just the negatives, you also looked for the other, because a lot of times when we start getting call recordings or we start looking at numbers, the team doesn't like it because we come down on them of, "Your numbers aren't good," or "You didn't handle this phone call well," but really we should be looking at areas they're doing well also and acknowledge them for that.
For sure.
And then the second thing that I said is you are a special case because you actually pay attention to the recordings, but a lot of offices I talk to, they don't have enough time. Doctors are like, "I can't listen to all these recordings." And I love what you said about your employee bringing it to you. I actually suggest that. Have your employees bring you the best and the worst phone call they had that week,
Yeah.
because the worst one
Let's
you can
review it.
coach on, and the
Yeah.
best one is a high five, because there are some calls you're like, "I did so good. Did anybody hear that?" So
Yeah,
I
for
love that
sure.
your team does that.
Yeah, well, and especially if it's, the top 5%, like, or the bottom 5%, right? Like, what was the best and the worst, and how did we overcome that? But it's gotta be a 1-3-1. So, Dan Martell talks about how their team has a 1-3-1. So, if there's a problem, they have to come with him with 3 solutions, but 1 outcome based off the best outcome to those 3 solutions.
Oh, I've
So
never heard that before. I know the 3
yeah.
solutions, but I've never heard that last part.
Yeah, so it's one thing to, like, have a problem. Everybody comes to us with problems, right? But you don't come to me with a problem without 3 solutions, potential solutions. So just like we do with, a space in somebody's mouth, it's like, okay, what's the best, what's the medium, and what's the worst outcome? Which could be a implant, a bridge, or a partial, right? And we go through that. Well, I want them to like, hey, here's the problem. Here are 3 potential things we could do, and here's the one I would choose. Let's talk through it.
Mhm.
Go through it.
I like now that you're making me we're gonna this should be we should retitle this one. This is the words we like or don't like in the practice. Because one of the things I changed in my practice is the word problem
Mm,
to we have an issue,
yes.
because there's always issues. But problem is like, "There's a problem, there's a problem." Well, if you live in a dental world, there's always a issue, right? So I use issue for that and bring 3 solutions, but I love that also outcome. The other thing is we've changed cancellations. Like if we're trying to fill the schedule, we have a last minute cancellation. We change the word cancellation to opportunity time. We have
Yeah.
opportunity in today's schedule, right? Because we all know what a cancellation means. It just sucks the energy out of the team. But when we say there's an opportunity, it's an opportunity to get another patient in here. It's an opportunity to see same day. So when you said problem, I'm like, there's another one of those words.
Yeah, and it's funny when I hear somebody say no problem, I hate that.
Uh,
I absolutely hate that.
really?
Yeah, because what it does is the same thing, right? It assumes there was a problem. So that's the reason why Chick-fil-A prides itself on saying my pleasure
Uh-huh.
versus no problem. And it's funny, like when you start hearing that, it's like, "Oh, wait, but was there a problem?"
Yeah. That's interesting. I'm gonna hear it that way now going forward. I've never heard that before.
It's those small things, right? Like that we're talking about. It's like there's always something we could do to improve our verbiage. And it's typically even with clinical excellence, with treatment acceptance, with anything,
Mhm.
there's these small words that when we can nail them and everybody's consistent, that's what really truly elevates the patient experience.
So, going back to the phones then,
Yeah,
so many times well, and this is all good because I think so many times we just put people I talk about in an interview, ask people, "Can you answer the phones?" They're like, "Yeah, I know how to answer the phone," "Hello," right? But that's not, "Can you answer the phone of my dental office?"
yeah.
And it's these little things, and what are you doing to make sure that the experience on the phone's elevated? And so now you listen to these recordings, you listen in Mango Voice, you can hear sentiments and go look at calls. What do you do with them now? So you see good and bad calls. Do you sit down for each time you have a call? Do you have meetings with your team? Do you let them what's your kind of consistent follow through with them to make sure that your phones are at the level that you expect?
Sure. So we do one-on-ones every 4 to 6 weeks or so. With the front, bring up the best and worst calls, go through them like, hey, how can we improve here? And we ask them to provide the solution, not me. So that way, it's them thinking about a better way of doing something. And honestly, most of the time, we tend to beat up on people, but most of the time they know what they did wrong. Like when they listen to it, they're cringing, right? They're like, "Ooh," they're cringing as much as you are. So it makes them uncomfortable and they don't wanna feel that way. So therefore, they're going to be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I could have done better here." So it's about consistency at that point. So how can we put in the reps and have those phone conversations that are an elite office or sound like an elite office that make you feel good after you get off the phone, even if the patient on the other end was maybe not the best person to talk to at the time.
Right. Yeah.
Typically, those are the lowest hanging fruit that you can like, okay, did you successfully de-escalate this? 9 times out of 10, you can, but there are those like 10% that are just like, okay, that was a tough one. They weren't going to be happy either way, but I do believe that there was maybe a better way of going about that. Here's what I would do. And a lot of times I kind of let them lean on me and my wife.
Mm.
And it's like, hey, like I know, I get it. I'm sorry. Like I'm not the one that made the policy, but there is a reason why, right? And it or like, unfortunately, like the few run it for the many, right? It's like, so I have to do it across the board. So just kind of like getting more rapport with people while it's going on. I mean, I know I've had those conversations with patients coming in and they're like, why did I get these 13 text messages? We're like, well, hey, what is pull up your text message. Let me see what it says. And I full well know, right? I have it right here in front of me on the screen. And I was just like, just read it back to me, right? Play dumb. It says, well, your appointment is this, this, and this. Please text C to confirm.
Mm. Uh-huh. Yeah.
You just didn't read it. If you would just confirm it, you would just get one more text. That's it, right?
Right.
But it's trying to get people to where they need to be and realizing it, right? And to that standard.
So the reality is, this all sounds good, but working at a front desk, I mean, when you're thinking about recordings, I think about a lot of the failures that, not failures, I should say, but a lot of the times, if I were to go back and to listen to my recordings, more than likely I didn't do as well as I could have because I was busy.
Yeah.
There's somebody standing in front of me, there's a doctor waiting for something. So, and everybody has different rules on how they handle the phones when it's busy, and when do you want your phones answered by? What are some of your parameters around that?
So I worked at a bank as a teller for, I don't know, 18 months or so, 2 years, something like that.
That was the
When we were
only job I ever got fired from, just so you know. It's my first job out of college, I got fired as a bank teller, and because I didn't think it was important to balance. I was like, "Well, it's off by $2. It's fine." Little did I know, hence the reason
no.
I'm not a detail person. I'm more of a big picture person, so you say
Yeah.
that, "Whoa, teller, I got fired." But anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, I get it, I get it. Yes. So I was a teller, and their rule was, you do not answer that phone, you take care of the person in front of you that made the time to get up and physically come to the branch, right? And then, if you have time, you can answer that phone. So, patient experience is super important to me. That is above all else. There are only 2 things that you can leverage in the front, which are patient experience and the schedule. Those are the only 2 things that you can leverage from a non-provider perspective. Everything else is costing you money, whether it be insurance, whatever, right? So I try to build the foundation and systems in the front where they're only focusing on those 2 things. They have knowledge of everything else and can do it, but that's not their sole job because we all know that insurance takes up 80% of everything you're trying to do. in the front. So now if I can outsource that and or automate it where it takes up only 10% of your time, then and that's mainly just intake so that way the other person can do it or the other company can do it, then now I can focus on the people in front of me. And if I do get a call, so if I'm on the front or in the front and I'm on the phone and somebody walks in, I will kind of wrap up what the sentence that I'm using, put my hand over the phone and say, "Hey, John, thank you so much for coming in. I'll let them know that you're here. Just have a seat real quick and we'll be right with you." And
Mhm.
then I continue the conversation, right? So either way, I can balance it and juggle it. Another thing is having the rest of your team be aware of what's going on. So if you're on the phone, we want people to have a good experience. I don't want to just cut somebody off and say, "Okay, well, do you mind holding for a second?" Unless I absolutely have to, right? Like if somebody's yelling at me or cussing me out in the front, like I'm like, "Hey, do you mind waiting just a second?"
Handle something.
Yeah, let me handle this real quick. It won't take but a moment.
Right.
But, my team will sit somebody down in the reception area like, "Hey, he's almost done. He'll be right with you. Just a second." And then they kind of flag me to make sure I know that they sat them down because there's nothing worse than leaving somebody behind and forgetting about them, right? So I'll like put a mark like on the board in front of me or something. Just say, "Hey, follow up with this person." And I'll finish the conversation quickly and then get to the next person. But to me, it's about being fluid. I will always talk to somebody right in front of me before I answer that phone. But that phone, if you have nobody in front of you, better be answered within 2 rings. It
So I'm
bothers me,
excited that we're talking about this right now. Sorry, I didn't mean to, but
but I
like I
know where
said,
this is going. So I yes,
exactly. Where I've been doing this 20 plus years, and there's this whole debate. I get this all the time of like, do you handle the patient in front of you? Do you answer the phone? And I disagree with you, which is why we are doing this. Like
great.
I
Not
believe
everybody can be perfect. It's fine.
yeah, no, exactly. But that's the thing is, reason I wanna have these conversations is and the reason you just did a coaching event with a bunch of great so people follow along, go see what he's doing. He's doing amazing intensive coaching events, but it's not to say my way is the only way. It's to have discussions around what works in your practice. So what works in your practice may be different than what works in my practice. I personally think that the phone and the person in front of you is just as important because I go to hotels a lot. And when I go to hotels and I'm standing there and I'm checking in and they let that phone ring and they let the phone ring and they let the phone ring, I'm almost to the point where I'm like, did you want me to answer it? Like, do you not hear that phone ringing? It drives me crazy. Because when I call the front desk, I'm in a hotel right now by these ugly curtains, you can tell. When I call the front desk from here and they don't answer, I now have the memory of this person ignoring my phone call, and I know that they're standing there. I don't want my patients to feel that way. So if you're ignoring the phone and it's ringing nonstop, we have a solution for this now.
That you
When
turn
this
it down.
patient leaves, the next yeah, right, turn it down. The next time they call, when it rings and rings and rings, they're gonna have this memory of that.
Yeah,
But 20 years ago, 15 years ago, there wasn't a good solution for this. More recently, outsourcing has become a big solution where you can
sure.
have the phones roll to a company like Reach or one of the companies that answers phones. But now, more recently, and why I'm with Mango and what we're smiling about, right, is that AI, you can be ready for AI now on the path to consider it or it's in the future. But AI is the solution to this problem that we've never had before. So I know that you are talking with Mango about Mango AI. I don't think you're using Margot yet in your office. Am I correct?
I have it.
Okay. We
It's
haven't
just
started.
not active
Huh.
because of things that we can't talk about yet.
Okay. So my point in bringing this up is
Yes,
AI is on development. It's in development. And there are some things that are AI that are ready to use now. There are some things that are pretty darn close, which is what we're talking about with you. And then there's stuff that's coming in the future. But this scenario we're talking about does have a solution in the future, depending on where you are in your trajectory of AI. Because if I know this patient in front of me, I agree this patient's super important, but I still want that phone call handled. I don't want it to go to voicemail, in my opinion. I want it handled. But if I can train AI to handle the call the way I want it handled, now I can trust that phone call is being handled. So that was a long story to say, where do you see that happening in your practice? What are your thoughts about AI being the solution for this particular scenario?
it's for sure a solution because not only for when that happens, which you got to gauge your practice, right? You got to know what's going on in your practice. whether or not you should have another person kind of as a backup to that front person, which is how I like to have it, so like they'll pick up when the other person is busy with the patient. So that solves that solution. But our payroll percentage is also at 18%. So like I can do that, right? If it's higher, I wouldn't suggest that. I would suggest AI or something else that's more cost effective. But when you have this solution of AI, to me, the sky's the limit and more because it solves this problem, which honestly is not that big of a problem if depending on your volume. The problem my practice has are the calls after hours and or on the weekends because we
Okay.
only work 3 days a week.
Oh, that's right.
So that's 4 days that phone is ringing
Huh.
and is not being answered, right?
Mhm.
So for us, and I would take all these calls on the weekends when they left voicemails. So when they left voicemails, here are the things that I heard. I had an extraction this week. It's hurting. I don't know what to do. I don't know whether or not it's an emergency or not. That's one scenario. Another thing is, oh, my crown came off. What can I do? Oh, I need to get in or I need to cancel my appointment. I need like there's these things that keep happening on the weekends and or after hours that you're just like, okay, somebody needs to handle this. I'm the one that's handling it right now. I do look upstream for like the extraction thing and I have a solution for that one. But for some of these things, you just can't help it. Life happens to patients. That is totally fine. And that's what we tell them like, hey, totally fine if you need to reschedule this. Just let us know. Right. But AI is going to give us the ability to provide solutions. We've only gone in 5 times for an emergency in the last 6 years. And only 2 of them were actually true emergencies. Most of the time, they just need a solution. It's the fear of the unknown. They don't know what to expect. So they're just thinking, oh, I need to talk to somebody. So the way that AI can really improve this patient experience and provide those solutions and free up our time on the weekends is just by like saying for a crown coming off, like, hey, go to your nearest CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, whatever, get dent temp. If it's not hurting, just keep it off. That's totally fine. But if it is, get some dent temp, put it on. Oh, there's only one way to go on and just don't lose it.
Right.
And give us a call on Monday, right?
Right.
Because
Or our
that's all
team
they
will
want to
call you
know.
on Monday.
Right,
Right.
right, exactly. So it's like, that's all you got to do. Same thing with extraction. Like I have protocols of like, hey, this is what I say every single time. So if now AI can filter those calls and give us those solutions, and then if it's only a true emergency, it says emergency and sends us an email like, hey, I need to call this patient back, right?
And
It's a
that's what we're working
massive
on at
game changer.
Margo right now, Margo
Yeah.
AI. One of the things I wanna tell you, because I don't even know if you know this. I mean, like, we're doing these videos live while I'm also, like, lively building, and I know that this is something that you have a request for, and you're not the only one for nights and weekends. But I will tell you, we have an office, that turned on Margo, who was like, "I don't know, we'll see, we'll try it." I went back and looked at the metrics. Very month before, they had Margo AI doing overflow nights and weekends. Only 25% of the patients in the scenarios you're talking about left voicemails. In the first month they had Margo, they didn't tell their team, they just turned it on. They were like, "Well, we'll see." 50% of the patients talked to Margo and left their message or talked to Margo. And then the email went with the summary, but it's more than what here's the benefit. I'm gonna push you over the edge a little, Kirk. We may not have all of the answers yet of how to appease the patient. But Margo knows the questions to ask because you can get that call where you're like, my tooth hurts. Can you just call me? And you have no idea which tooth, where it is in the mouth, how long has it been hurting. Margo can say, well, where in the mouth is it hurting? How long has it been hurting? Tell me about the pain. Give me a scale of 1 to 10. So when you're at a wedding on Saturday night and you're trying to decide, is this a return phone call because it's a true emergency or not? It's already helping kind of guide more of the discussion of what you're looking for as we train AI to do more and more for these calls. So it's getting there for sure,
It's that
but
close.
it's that close. And I'm going to keep working on it because it's that close. Here's another thing that I envision. The reason we have AI handling overflow calls is because the front desk is too busy, right? The front office
Yes.
team, say front desk, right? The front office team is too busy. What I want to get to is get to the point where we're close, where Margo can handle the call initially as the receptionist and then only send the revenue generating calls to the human who's at the office. And Margo handles the other ones. Like, let me get your updated insurance. Let me give you directions to the office. You're a salesperson. Let me take a message. So there's less phone calls coming into the front desk so that when the humans get that phone call, they know this is an important one because it is a revenue generating call.
Yeah.
That would be
And
amazing.
that's it would be. I'm gonna play a devil's advocate.
Sure. Yeah. Give it to me because we're building it as we're speaking.
So The only thing that I could see is how we filter those patients.
Mhm.
So if there's a way,
Give me your
but it
thought
would
around it.
yeah, so, like, f so once we get to what we can't talk about, not speech to text, if that helps you with that. Once we get to that
Uh-huh.
next phase that I heard this weekend, I am 100% on board.
Okay. So this is the cliffhanger. I'm going to leave it at this point. So here's the amazing thing about this discussion, which I love. And we would love anybody who watched this, put your notes, put your comments, give us your words that you don't like, but that you love in your practice. But Kirk is currently helping offices right now do better in the front. I have been doing this for a very long time and I love these conversations about phones because how many people actually talk about how important the phone is? But then we're also building the latest and greatest next technology and in conversation around that. So this conversation is going to evolve and grow. And I'm excited to talk about a year from now how we talk about our AI and we're training our AI and how our humans have more time in their day. So I'm going to leave it at that because this is a conversation I think you and I are going to have a lot going forward.
Yes. Yes, for
Awesome.
sure.
Awesome. All right. So put your words in the bottom. We'd love to hear it. Kirk and I will talk about it next time. What are words that we saw you write that you love or don't like in your practice? I appreciate your time again, Kirk, and I will see you on the next episode.
Yep, same.